Unity is a free and powerful game engine used by most beginner developers before the 2023 incident. Yeah. Last time I touched it, I was 14, trying to make an open world game like Minecraft. And let's just say it didn't go well and I quit. Now I'm 17, I downloaded Unity a few days ago, and this time things feel different. Back then I had zero clue what I was doing, and this time I still have zero clue, but I know how to Google. Unity, game, make, 3D, please. Alright, here's the Unity hub, and let's launch it. There you go. So you can see I have two games here already. I've been, just playing around with Unity and things like that, but let's create a brand new project. And it's obviously going to be a 3D game. I don't know why would you create a 2D game. No one plays that. I don't know why. Like, do you have like a mental project name? It's going to be named huge game. Okay, perfect. Create projects. Whoa. What is this? Nah. Okay. I've watched a couple of tutorials. That's fine. It's fine. I mean, this is simple, really. Okay, so let's just go through it together. I mean, we'll figure it out. So there is hierarchy, there is scene, there is game, there is the inspector tab, there is project, there is console, and in project there's assets and packages. All right. So the hierarchy. This is basically where we have our things, right? So if we click this plus icon, it seems like, yeah. So 3D object, this is where you're going to be creating whatever physical thingy. You can create a camera from here. You can add images, text, things like this. Everything here, you will be seeing it on the scene. You'll actually see it. On the project is basically where you store your things, your game assets. For example, materials, for example, I don't know, like the terrain, whatever you import from whatever. So that's the project. Console, I've never seen this in my entire life. Let's just ignore that. Inspector, which is basically when you click on something, global volume, for example, and then you can make changes, right? So for example, if you have a player, you can change its size by increasing the Y, obviously. That's the height. This is the, the horizontal thingy. And then the Z, I have no idea what is that. Then we have the asset store, by the way, if you guys didn't know that. If you go to asset store web, it will redirect me to this. So if you're creating, let's say, an open world game, you can just come here, and there's a lot of free assets. There's also paid ones, but then you can just go to free, and you can see a lot of great assets here. So it's a really cool thing that Unity has. I'm not sure about other game engines, but yeah, let's go back to Unity here. All right, so our goal today is to create a really simple game. Basically, a player that can move. It can walk, run, and jump. Pretty simple. And obviously walking, I want to use basically like going forward, going to the left, going to the right, and going backwards. And obviously using the WASD keys, not the arrow ones from your keyboard. No one uses those. But there is an issue. Unity uses the programming language C#, and I have no idea how it works, nor do I know any other language out there, but yeah, let's go to YouTube. All right, so before we start creating our movements and learning how to program it, let's create the player, right? That makes sense, right? Come on, like, yeah. So, I mean, make sure you select the sample scene. That's what I learned. So this is a parent thingy object, and then this is a child object. You want to create it under the parent. So if we go to 3D, obviously, I mean, why would you do 2D? So 3D, capsule, we're gonna rename it player. So as you can see, here's our guy. He's chilling there. Hold on, I don't know how to zoom. Okay, cool. So this is our player. He's very short right now. So if we go to scale, right? So on in the inspector, the scale, you want to increase the Y. Let's create 1.8. Yeah, that seems right. Seems about right. Human height, right? And then now we have our player. We're gonna be again selecting the parent, and then 3D object terrain, right? So we want to have it like a ground, so our player can stand on something. Hold on, there we go. So this is the ground, huge by the way. I'll adjust it later if needed. Let's drag our player to the ground and make sure it's above the ground. All right, perfect. So if we go to the game tab here, you can see our camera is weirdly positioned, right? And then let's say if you're playing the game, like when you move the player, the camera is gonna stay at this exact spot. And obviously we don't want that. So if you go back to scene, and here's our camera, right? What we want, by the way, we're creating a first person game, pretty sure, right? So if we go to the main camera, which is that, we will drag it to the player. So when the player moves, the main camera will move with him as well. That's what I've learned based on extensive research, and then make it on top of his head, inside his head, right? All right, so if we go to the camera tab, as you can see, we're looking through the player's head, right? So this is way better, in my opinion, and much simpler. So now we've done that. Oh my god, I gotta learn C#, really? All right. Alright, so I've been learning C#. I really haven't touched much in detail, but I got a pretty good understanding. Honestly, I'm glad I took the time to learn it. It's really, really fun. But what I've actually learned is also here on console. For example, in VS Code, you type in, let's say, console.writeline, parentheses, quotation mark, and then let's say hello world. That's like the standard for every programming language. But here on Unity, you could actually use debug.log, and you could write a message to yourself. But then also there's the warning messages and the errors. So that's the console tab. And yeah, so that's what I did. Now, let's focus on what we're actually going to be doing. Creating movement for our player. Now, there actually is two ways into creating movement here. So there is the character controller way, and there's also the rigid body way. So you can create movement with one of these. Basically, the main difference, from what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, but rigid body is basically has more physics, it interacts with the world much better. For example, you hit a wall, you kind of squeeze and things like that. And then for the character controller, it's much more smoother, but also fixed. So that's the main difference. Obviously different code and things like that. Okay, so once we chose our method, which is character controller, what we're gonna be doing is creating the scripts, the C# scripts, in order to code, obviously, right? So before we do that, let's create a folder and let's name it scripts, because you wanna stay organized here, because honestly it's gonna get messy. And then you just right click, create, and I recommend choosing the mono behavior script because it already gives you the void start and the void update. I'll explain what those are in just a second. We're actually going to create two scripts, one for the movement, the player movement, and one for the camera or the mouse. So you can combine them, by the way, but it's better to separate them. And let's start with actually the mouse. I'm gonna name it mouse look or mouse movement, whatever. And then the other one is player movement. Let's start with the mouse movement, because first we want to, look up, down, right, left, and then we can worry about going forward, going backwards, going to the right, and going to the side. So let's go ahead and start writing some code. But before we do so, let me explain a few things. And this is what I learned. And also, please correct me if you know C# or things like that. This is a class, and these are very important because they start from this curly parentheses and ends with this. Right, and then if you type any code here, it won't really register. There's the mono behavior. This is what Unity uses to read what you have written, so it can show it on your tab on Unity. And then the mouse look is the name of our script. The void start and the void update. So these both are actually functions. You can also call them methods. And essentially, void start is basically if you write any code inside of these curly parentheses, they will only run once when you start the game, but on the void updates they keep repeating every single frame. So obviously automatically 90% or even 99% of our code will be on the update. So here on the void update, we're gonna be getting an input. So if I go to Unity here and then go to edit, project settings, input manager, on the mouse there are mouse X and mouse Y. So now here on our code, what we're gonna be doing is just getting those inputs from Unity and having them in our code. So float. Now, before I even go further, what is float? Float is basically a data type, and it's specifically for decimal numbers. For example, 1.3, 1.4, not just 1 or 2. For decimal numbers, there's also two other ones, which is double and decimal. Double is actually more common, is a lot more common in C#, but specifically for Unity, specifically when it comes to movement, we use float because it works better with math and physics and things like that, and gravity. So yeah, float, and let's type in mouse x. This is the first one. We're gonna get equal. We're gonna get our input, get axes, right? And then parentheses, and then also the quotation marks. When you do this, by the way, it's basically a string, which is text. So we can just type in mouse x. And then float, mouse y. We're gonna be doing the same thing for y. X is basically like this, and y is like this, in case you don't know. And there you go. We now are getting the inputs. By the way, these are pre-programmed. Like when we're typing this, like there's a lot more code behind these like 2 lines, but Unity created them and pre-programmed them for us, so we can just reference them, and then automatically we'll have the code, which is honestly great. Yeah, so that's that. Now we're getting the input. We want to actually get movement. To make movement, let's focus on the X, looking left and right. What we need is our player to basically rotate to the left and right side, right? So that's what we're going to be doing. The first thing is we're actually going to create a public, is it public? Yeah, it's public. Transform a capital T actually. By the way, what I learned is code is extremely case sensitive. So public transform, and then we're going to name our body. So I can just say in player body, and we just end with this. Now we created our player body, which we can attach to our camera, so they're interlinked. So now we have our player body. We can just type in player body. What do we want? We want obviously to rotate. And rotate based on what? Based on vector 3. Vector 3 is x, y, and z, right? Which one do we want to do? Up. What is up is the y axis. I'll explain that in just a second. And then we multiply it by our mouse x. And we just end it. So why do we do, you might be asking, oh, hold on. I didn't even close my parentheses. So you might ask, why are we using the up one? Why not right? Not right. Yeah, right or left. Why not these two? Well, if you look at this GIF I got, which is basically when you're looking right or left, you're basically using the y axis, right? So that's why we use the up axis. So at first it didn't really make sense for me, but then when I looked at this image, the plane looking the right and left, it really made sense. So right now we just literally created our X movement. So if I even just go save and go to our Unity, a thing we need to do is actually, again, when I said a reference, in our camera, we just take our player body and we put it here, right? Because it's public, so it shows up here. I actually didn't explain what public and private means. I'll do that once we just test this movement. And as you can see, we're getting movement, and we're looking 360 degrees. And I'll actually mention this, we can't do the same line of code for looking up and down, because we obviously don't want to look 360 degrees. Like, you're gonna break your neck. That doesn't make sense. So let's go back to the code. So what public and private means, essentially, if you have something public, it will show up on your inspector on the Unity, and also you can reuse it in your code. But then if it's private, you can't. And also, if you just don't type anything, it automatically is going to be defaulted to private. There are specific scenarios where it's not going to default to private. It's actually going to use eternal. But yeah, I usually prefer, or at least from what I've learned, it's better to type exactly. Even if you know it's going to default to private, just type private just so you can know, not get confused. Now let's create movement for our mouse Y to look up and down. In order to do this, we're going to create an X rotation. Essentially what this is that we want our mouse to look up and down. And also when we go up, our player is also going to look up, and vice versa with looking down. So let's create something called private. This is a private one. x rotation, and we're gonna give it 0f. Oh yeah, so since it's a 0f, obviously we're gonna be using float. Now you might ask why are we using type in f here? It's because we're using float. If we're using, for example, decimal or double, you just type in 0. Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure it's x rotation minus equals, and then I think mouse y. Yeah. Now to explain what this is, it's actually, I mean, it's just basically saying that if we take our mouse up, the player will look up. Same thing with looking down. And the reason it's minus is if, for example, if you do plus equals mouse y, if you take your mouse up, the player would look reversed. He would look down. We obviously don't want that, so we just have it decreasing. Then what we're going to be doing is creating something called transform local. Hold on. Case sensitive again. This is very important, and we're just going to be doing this. It's actually equals. What is it? So vector 3. Oh yeah, no, we don't use this. Yeah. Okay, we use something called quaternion. Yeah. So this is quaternion. Essentially, what this is basically not direction. It's actually rotation, and we get rotation by the Euler angle. So this is angles, and this is the rotation, and we use the degrees, by the way. And then we just parentheses. We type in x rotation here, and then 0f, because we're trying to get the. So this is x, y, z. We're trying to do the x1, because we're trying to use the mouse y based on the x-axis, right? So x1, and obviously we're not trying to do the y or z1, and we just end the line of code here. And then a thing here to mention is we're trying to limit our player to not look all the way up or all the way down. We don't want him to make a backflip or breaking his neck, basically. So what we do is we use something called clamping. We use x rotation equals, we use math here, dot clamp. By the way, when you see dot, essentially what this means is clamp is actually inside the math f in basic terms. And then we just do this. We type in obviously x rotation, and we limit it by 90 degrees, minus 90 degrees, and 90 degrees here as well. Obviously with the f here. The code is all ready when it comes to mouse movement. So let's test the code. So if I go, let's go to play maximized and click here. There we go. So obviously this is bothering me, by the way. You can see the mouse, so we're gonna hide that. But as you can see, we have limited it. It can't look up all the way up, and we can look. So we can do a backflip essentially, and we can just do this. Perfect. So let's just type in one line of code here in the void start again. So this is it runs once, not every frame. And what we're doing is cursor log state equals cursor log mode locked. It's correcting the case here, which is honestly amazing. Appreciate that. So even let's save and let's test if the mouse is there. And there we go. The mouse is in the center right now, as you can see, and it's locked here. Beautiful. Let's just type like this. All right. Let's just type these messages. These are messages, by the way, so you can type in messages like this, or you can type them like this, and you can just end with this, and just type in something here, right? But we can't type any code from here, by the way, since we're out of the class. These are the limits. Okay. Let's work on the player movement. Now, let's go back to Unity. Actually, let's go to the edit and project settings. So what I told you earlier, we use the mouse X and Y, mouse Y. Now we're gonna use in the horizontal and the vertical, right? So let's do it. We're gonna be doing float again. X equals input get axes, and then what do we do is actually I forgot. Yep, we type in basically horizontal, and we end it from here. Float X input get axes vertical. I typed in X there. Okay, so we're using X and Z. We're not using Y, by the way, because we're trying to move forward, not up. That's that. Now let's create the movement. So we've gotten this. What should we do next? I actually forgot. But make sure you don't memorize this. Just understand it. When you understand it, automatically you're gonna have it memorized. Naval says, if you guys are familiar, if you're trying to memorize something, then it means you actually don't understand it. There we go. I remembered. Well, I didn't remember. I just checked my Google Doc. By the way, this is my Google Doc. I don't know if I showed it already, but I created 11 pages of all of the things that I've learned. And this code is basically me testing a couple of code just so I can have it remembered. So we're going to create a vector 3. A vector is basically XYZ again. So vector 3, and we're creating move equals move. I think this is, no, hold on. I'm tripping. And we're using transform here. Transform. And we're using actually right, and we multiply this by x plus transform dot up, and you multiply this by z. Essentially, what this code is, we're trying to get movement. We're basically getting the WASD keys. Now, why are we using right instead of left? Why are we using up instead of actually not up? This is forward. Why are we using forward instead of backward? We're putting the positive numbers instead of the negative ones, because if we do the negative ones, when I click W, it will go backwards. It will use S. If I go to the left, it will go to the right. Meaning, if I click A, it will go D. If I click D, it will go A. It's really confusing, so we just put in the positive numbers instead. That's what we want, right? So that's that. Now, remember what I mentioned, there's two methods into creating movement in Unity, the character controller and the rigid body. We're actually gonna now use the actual thing, which is the character control. So we go under the class here, we type in character, controller, and we end it like this. And then we type just one line of code, saying controller, move, like this, and move, and we end it. Now we have movement, but there's two issues. Like basically what's gonna happen is if you have less FPS than me or more FPS than me, you're gonna move faster. And same thing with the mouse. You're gonna have your sensitivity quicker than mine if you have more FPS. So what we're gonna be doing is here on the move, we multiply it by time, delta, time, right? So this essentially is basically having an independent FPS, which means everyone will have the same speed of movement no matter what your FPS is. And also you can do it here, which is basically dividing speed. We didn't create it, by the way. We need to come here, public float speed equals, let's say 10F, and we end it, because we want to control our speed. You can do this, but then the camera or the movement will be very flickery. I noticed putting it here is way better. So you type in the X and then you multiply it by speed. And same thing here. You multiply it by speed. Also on the mouse movement, I didn't use the mouse sensitivity. So public float mouse sensitivity equals 100F, right? And then we just come here and we just divide mouse sensitivity and also multiply the time, delta time. There we go. So now, even in your mouse, we don't want it to have a different sensitivity based on your FPS. And so we're done, basically. Let's just click save and let's go and play our game. Oh yeah, so we need to assign so if I go here on properties, I just gotta take our character control and put it on the, assign it to the player movement. The speed, we can change it here, the player speed, and also on the mouse sensitivity, we can change it here. So we should be good. Let's test it. And hopefully there's no flickering, because that's a common issue that a lot of people have. Yeah, cool. Our mouse sensitivity is a bit slow. Let's do 200. All right, there we go. So everything is good. I can look down. I have that limit, which is the clamp pin. We can look down. We can move up, right. Perfect. Not up, by the way, it's forward. Because up, you're basically flying. We don't want that. So I did mention that we're going to be creating also jump-in, but turns out jump-in is actually very complex. I have the code already, but I don't understand it. I want to make sure to understand it before I use it. That's just a rule that I'm going to be having when it comes to learning Unity. So yeah, this is the next day, and I actually forgot about running completely. So let's implement it. It's actually much more simpler than implementing gravity. So let's do it right now. So it's obviously on the player movements. So now we have speed, but it's general. But now we need to make it more specific. So let's make it run speed, and then we'll do the same one for walk in. So just walk speed, and then we're gonna create a private current speed. Yeah. So we're using float, but essentially what this is we can quote it later. So instead of type in run speed and walk speed, we'll just quote this one, and obviously replace these with current speed, and here as well. But then we need to create something similar to this, and we'll use the if and else statements if you guys are familiar, which is like goes like this, and then we'll do this like this, and then here we type in else, we open another curly brackets, and like this. So here on the inside the if statement, what we're gonna be typing is input. Instead of get axis, it's actually get key, and we're gonna open another parentheses, and here we're gonna type in key code dot left shift. So obviously the standard is when you click shift, the left shift, not the right one, you're gonna run. This is not in the input manager, same as horizontal and vertical and mouse X and mouse Y, but this is standard, so the code is automatically gonna understand it. And what we're gonna be typing here is current speed equal to run speed, right? And then here, if it's not being pressed, the left shift, we're gonna say current speed equals walk speed, and we end it like this. And it's literally, that's all we need. And so if I, oh yeah, almost I forgot about this. So let's make actually the walking 10 and the running 20. This is too much, but basically it's just to show you guys. Okay, so everything still works, and now I'm currently walking. When I click left shift, as you can see, the speed increased. So I'm not clicking, I'm clicking. So yeah, that's pretty much it. As for the jumping, it's actually I still don't understand it. Actually, I'm editing the video we're watching right now. So once I finish that, I'll learn it, and yeah. All right. So I know I did mention that we're gonna be also adding jump, but it's actually far complex than just adding jump. We gotta make sure we have a working gravity. We use velocity. We use ground check, ground mask. It's a complex one. I don't really fully understand it, and so I'm not gonna type it. I have the code, but I'm not gonna use it. This is just a rule that I'm gonna be having from now on. I don't put in code that I don't understand. That's it for our video. I mean, the reason I created this new channel in this video, because I actually have a great game idea. It is a horror game, but I know, don't leave. It's a new idea, okay? I like the idea, and we're gonna be building it in this channel. I'm gonna start documenting the first process. We're gonna be using this game, by the way. I'm just gonna rename it. I'll explain what the game is. I'll start creating the movements, the gravity, and things like that. I'll start creating the map, and we'll create the entire game, hopefully in less than a year. We'll see. Hope you enjoyed, and welcome. You're welcome.